All right, welcome everyone to the latest installment of the PMP podcast. I'm joined by returning guests, Marshall Heck Yeah Byers and Ruth Utnich. And today we're just gonna have a conversation about some of the things that Ruth and Marshall have been up to, the impact of the prison math project on their lives, and sort of a reflection. So of course, for those of you who aren't familiar, just to quickly get you caught up on what is the Prison Math Project. So essentially, we're an organization that helps connect people who are incarcerated throughout, right now, just the United States, to mathematical pen pals across the world. And so, of course, the sort of surface level idea is help people learn mathematics who want to learn mathematics while they're in prison. But then the sort of deeper level here is the impact that has, the sort of greater change in people's lives that goes on to initiate, and which we're going to dive into today. So on that point, the two things I want to bring up to anyone listening. One is that we're looking to expand. We want to try and advertise to Canadian prisoners right now. So if anyone is watching this and has any leads on how we can get our organization out there, please don't hesitate to contact the PMP. There's going to be information in the description below. The second thing we're looking for right now is we have a newsletter that goes out to participants and mentors and just people interested alike. Comes out about 3 times a year. And we're looking for someone who can help us design that newsletter. Specifically, we're looking for someone with experience with the program called Canva. Ideally, if you're an artistic, creative individual, you like the PMP, you're behind what we're doing, and a cherry on top would be some experience with LaTeX, although not strictly necessary. Then please, again, contact us, get at us. We're looking for volunteers. So with all of that out of the way, I like to reintroduce Ruth and Marshall, former PMP participants, and I want to ask how are both of you doing? What are you up to?
Go ahead, Ruth.
All right. Yeah. Hey, Marshall. So I'm doing really well. I'm excited. I've been out for almost 2 months now, and I feel like my life is this really enriched, fertile ground to grow from. And I'm so excited to be out in the world and to just experience all the new things. Life is amazing right now. I'm having a hard time finding anything kind of bad. Like even the COVID is like, well, that sucks, but I'm loving it. I think I don't love COVID, obviously. It's tragic, but I also think that there's so much that we can do, and I'm excited to do all of those things.
Fantastic. And how are you doing, Marshall? You're on a chicken farm right now, is that right?
Yeah, I'm at a good friend's house. I stayed the night out here last night. I was in the neighborhood. My kids are back from college, and I got to hang out with them pretty late last night. And yeah, I just figured I would just stay in the area since I live quite a few miles away from here. But yeah, life is incredibly wonderful and beautiful. And I've been out for about 6 months now. And I am so thankful and grateful for my life and my freedom and the ability to choose and to have the attitude of gratitude. And I just love it. Every day I get to wake up. And today the rain has finally stopped. So like I'm extra in a good mood.
Oh, fantastic. You still got are you still rocking the funky socks?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
I got some stripes on today, but yeah, I love the socks.
Okay, glad to hear that you're keeping the socks exciting. Keep it up. Keep it up. Yeah. So I guess let's just dive right into the heart of things. So everything's things are going fantastic for the both of you. But I want to discuss, what is the relationship that the PMP has had to, what's the impact that the PMP, of course, there's a lot of things that have, gone into this and your journeys, separately, but let's sort of maybe talk about your initial history with the PMP and what you see as the impact that that's had.
Go ahead, Ruth.
Right. Yeah, no, thank you very much. Yeah, you know what? I think that that's really the heart of what, like, where my heart is at, actually, the heart of my heart, so to speak. And the PMP, the Prison Mathematics Project, has been like this really impactful thing for me because of the people that are involved with it. And I think that's really kind of what I would like to focus in on, is that one, it's the people that make up the PMP that really make this exciting for me. Because while I was inside, I was able to be connected with a mentor, and I wasn't like the best at mathematics, but I really loved it. And so my own personal story for that comes with, it starts with Einstein, actually. I seen like this vague study, and I'm gonna like really destroy it trying to describe it, but I will say that there was like this study that was done, and it interested me, and it was about quantum mathematics and what that means for our universe. And while I don't know a lot about the subject, what Einstein was sort of talking about in this one particular instance was when two particles are separated in the universe, then there's math that states that what you do to one will directly impact the other, even if they're billions of light years away, and it happens instantaneously. So when you bring one up, the other one goes down immediately, and it's like the simultaneous link. And Einstein was like, that's spooky. And it means that they have a way to like communicate directly with one another, like way faster than what we understand. And then in the 80s, long after that report came out, there was something that sort of confirmed that. And that's what I seen. So then I started looking at it because it was interesting to me. I didn't know anything about it. And what got me interested in mathematics was I looked at that paper that Einstein wrote, and I didn't understand a single word of it. In fact, I still don't. And that's what got me interested in mathematics, because I wanted to understand what he was saying. Like that is an exciting thing for me, that we have these things that can communicate in the universe and we don't understand how. And we have two of the greatest minds, Niels Bohr and Albert Einstein, arguably, and they disagree about what mathematics states. And for me, that's an exciting territory. And while I don't understand it now and I can't tell you about it and I have no answers for that, I find it a wonderfully complex topic, and it keeps my interest in learning. So that's really how I got started. That, and then I also knew our executive director, Christopher Havens. He's a good friend of mine, as well as Marshall is a good friend of mine. And we all sort of knew each other and were a support system for each other while we were incarcerated. And it's Marshall and Christopher, and then the topic that really got me excited about it. So I don't know, I guess that's a starting point for me.
Yeah, I very much, I mean, there's a number of reasons about why I got interested in math, but certainly part of it was one, reading like popular physics book, like Brian Greene, Stephen Hawking. And I was like, okay, like, I guess I sort of understand the concept, but I was like, I knew that there was something more, right? And I figured out that something more was math. And I was like, oh, I guess if I really want to understand it, I have to learn the math. And then also part of it too is I just saw these crazy equations and these weird symbols I'd never seen before. I'm like, I want to know like that. I want to know what it is. What is it? Like,
right.
Like, these symbols just look cool. I want to like draw them purposefully,
Yeah.
Yeah. So Marshall, how about and I think we did touch on this, a little bit in in our interview with you, but maybe let's just go over again with your initial coming to math and the start of your journey.
Well, yeah, that's I still kind of giggle a little bit looking back of how I've come to math, is that I absolutely hated math, like HATE, like, all the way.
Yeah, you did.
I have had the worst math anxiety in my entire life since I can remember, and there was no way. I didn't want to learn it. I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to just any of it. I was the version like no. And as I was incarcerated, I I had been changing my life, working on my character and healing relationships and like conquering fear and really just becoming the man that I have become today. And I was left with the question by so many people, like, why aren't you applying to the college courses in prison? And to which I'd answered, well, is there math? And of course, yes. And I was like, no, I'm good. Nope, not me. Well, I had a great friend in a cellie at the time named Donnie Button, which also knew Christopher Havens and was also in these college programs. And he had told me, it was like, there's an instructor in there. Her name's Melissa McKay, and she will not leave you behind. And at that point, I started to realize, like, well, I really have no excuse. If someone's really willing to help me every step of the way, like, I have no excuse. And so I just went in head first. And it was, I wanted to quit every day. And when math hit, I definitely wanted to quit every day. And then that's when I had met Ruth. She had really helped me in more ways than just math and during those college courses through Edmonds Community College. And then I had worked with Christopher Havens at the time too. And so he was tutoring me while we were working in the laundry factory, and still all the while, you know, definitely still hating math, but knowing I want to do school, but I have to learn math to get through this. And that's where the story really began with me with math. And then it's still weird to admit, but I slowly started to hate math and became friends. Just we're friends. We're still working on our friendship, but like it's growing a little bit.
Right. You can tolerate each other now. You're not like hanging out at each other's family barbecues or something, but you're like, you'll give each other a nod on the way to the water cooler at the office or something.
Yeah, when we cross each other in the hallway, we just glance at each other and keep walking. But I have a small grin now, just a small little lighthearted grin.
Fantastic. Yeah, actually, while you were saying that, it sort of struck me that it sounded similar to me, like when people describe how they got into running. People talk about like going to the gym and they're like, oh yeah, the first 2 months I just hated it, but I kept going and and then
Yep.
That actually brought something up for me.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So like at that time that me and Marshall were sort of like, when Marshall was discovering his love for math, or his friendship with it, I should say, like there was something happening in our prison at that time, because we were all in the same institution, and there was something happening in our institution at that time that was really quite amazing. There was this cultural shift that was beginning to happen. And Marshall, maybe you can kind of help me with this piece of things, but like, and at that time there was such a high interest from all the people that were like culturally popular at that time to get into education. And that was unusual. It was unusual that was happening like that, because for the first time we had people that were like with the popular crowd, and then we had people that weren't with the popular crowd, and divided for whatever reason. Suddenly everybody was converging in this thing called education, and that's still going strong today. But that was several years ago that I remember it happening, where I was watching people in college communicate with one another about these really complex topics, about race, about education, about social status, about financial status. And I think a lot of that was really sparked because of education, and that education was really sparked because there was people like Marshall, like Christopher, like myself, who were willing to step up and say, actually, we find this really valuable. This is what we're doing. Marshall, do you remember when it was me, you, like we had just started? Do you remember what the cultural, like, I guess, temperature was at that time when it came to education? Because it seemed like it just started at that point. I don't know why I feel that way.
Well, because I think it was maybe a year or so before that Edmonds had started that program, the Associates of Technical Arts degree. And then there was a few other little things going on. But yeah, it was like there was a list, like a waiting list to get in there. And like you had to meet some criteria. So like it was a little buzz in the community. And I started hearing people saying that they wanted an education, and I was always like, not me. And then that's when I decided I had no excuse. So I jumped in, but I saw, yeah, every different kind of a group setting to like individualism to where once we started like signing up for these classes, you were able to connect with people. I would have never have talked to some of these individuals ever had it not been for education. So like there was a whole new dynamic, because like I said, I'd been on this big change and self-development program, and then I started going to college and learning math, and then it opened up my eyes to a whole new level of learning and insight and self-discovery. And it was a beautiful thing to see that. And I still have friends to this day that I thought I would have never have talked to had it not been for education.
That's interesting. So even, I mean, so the, one of the other things I was going to dig into is like your personal lives, the run-on effect that getting into education sort of had, but it sounds like even in the prison environment itself, in a wider sort of like the culture of the prison was positively impacted in the sense that it sounds like it broke down barriers, and that's even had a lasting effect onto to today, and this shift sort of happened started years ago anyways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess
yeah,
I mean the question is, how do we create more of this?
Funding. Yes, because we've seen it as while we were incarcerated, a lot of programs get taken because they need money for safety and security of the institutions, which is understandable. And meanwhile, there's a bunch of hungry individuals that really want to make a difference in their life and get an education, so when they get out, they can better succeed. And there was times too where it's like I couldn't get into a class, and same with Ruth, that like, I mean, you really find out what you're made of when you really want to do something, and how far you're willing to go with healthy strategies, of course, to really get into some of these classes, like just knocking on doors, sending kites, requests, and asking questions. Like you almost become a private investigator. Like, hey, like, how'd you get in there? Like I asked so many questions. I wanted in every part of education. Once the fire got lit.
Right. So this is probably then a good time to remind the listeners that the PMP, we're a volunteer based organization, and so we largely run on donations in order to keep ourselves up and running. I mean the running budget I don't think is necessarily massive, maybe compared to some other organizations, but you might be surprised as to how quickly it adds up, because we're facilitating things like, the sending of letters between prisoners and mentees. We're trying to get these newsletters put out. So there are some running costs, and they do add up. So we do ask for donations. Again, you can check out the website. It'll be linked below. We've also now partnered with Zcash, which is a cryptocurrency. So if you prefer to donate in crypto, you can do that. But we also take other traditional methods of payment for donations. So it seemed like a fitting time to toss that one out there.
Yeah, for sure. That's, funding is really important, because that's a lifeblood of any organization, is that you have to have the funds to run it. And it is really important. And I know that one of the major issues that really sparked the necessity for PMP to even come alive in the country is that it is difficult for an inmate to engage in education. I know that I've heard reports of other states have completely shut down their educational system. And then with COVID sort of like being this pandemic that really hit institutions hard, not just prison systems, but healthcare institutions and all kinds of institutions across the world, really. And prisons are among that. And a part of that is that they had to limit the kinds of in-person interactions that we were allowed to have. And so then PMP is already sort of like this light that's sort of burgeoning among the academic educational community within the prison, as far as inmates are concerned. Like, we know about it. and we're sort of hungry for it, because one of the things that we ran into with education is that we go through like a basic algebra course and we're like, hey, we really like this. What are additional resources? Well, we get down to the prison library and almost none of the time is there educational books for us to use. There's a lot of books for us to have access to, but it's surprising how little space a prison library reserves for educational textbooks, things for us to do. And then once we do have that material, there's really nobody for us to go and talk to about it when we want to pursue it. So it gets very discouraging. So the PMP sort of stepped inside that space of need, which was, how do we connect people that are interested in mathematics or any subject? Now we're opening up to more STEM subjects currently, and how do we bridge people into the educational system and do it in a way that it meets the safety and security requirements of an institution, such as following like COVID guidelines, or when somebody gets moved institutions, they also lose their educational standing. When they go to the new institution, that doesn't always transfer over, if ever. And then we have the funding issue where an educational program just gets simply pulled because of funding restrictions, or some new bill comes out, or this new piece of legislation gets challenged, or whatever the case may be. And we know that education is one of the most fundamental foundational pieces to lower recidivism rates among the criminal justice system. We know that education is a key factor, and it's not overlooked by many people. Many people understand that that's what it is, and they just assume that it's actively involved in our prison system, but it's not. And that's where the PMP really steps in, is that this is no cost to the inmates. We're being able to participate in a high quality education. It's focused, it gives us purpose, and then it allows us to give back to our community in a way that we weren't able to previously, where now we actually have a community. For instance, Kristaps, I never would have met you or Marshall had it not been for that bridge of PMP. And I just want to like focus in on that. Like, I really enjoy knowing you guys, and this is what community is.
Yeah, for me, it's a dynamic life change that I wouldn't be where I'm at today. Like, it's one thing to like learn math, but for me, it was a more dynamic and psychological part where like I struggle a lot with processing things and anger issues from the past that I've been able to work through. But like, math was like the most difficult thing to get after and to figure out, and like the PMP had helped me and still helping me in so many ways out here in the community. It's just to know like I can literally do anything I want in this life, and it's because of conquering the math anxiety has proven the fact that that was the only giant thing holding me back. It was my Mount Everest. Like, I've been on top, like I've crushed that mountain, and I haven't gotten very far in math, but that's not the point. It's like the community and the education and the lowering the recidivism rate, and then following us to see like how much difference it makes in the community, that coming out of prison with a little bit of education and a whole lot of self-development. And the PMP is I've been so very grateful like for that, like, and then being able to have that support and that community connection, and understanding that I can call or text or have a Zoom meeting with my mentor, my math mentor, and it just opens up so many possibilities. And there's no excuses. There's for at least me. And I know once other people want to get into it and they get fired up about it, and just to have that support, there's really there's no limit. And I know a lot of people say the sky's the limit, but I like to break those chains and to know that there is no limit. You just keep going, right? Math has no limit. Just keep going. On and on and on, Christopher Haven says.
So sorry, we had to pause for a second for some technical difficulties, but so getting right back to it, talking about the the impact that PMP has had, and the fact that it depends on the educational programs in different prisons. Of course, they all have different educational programs of varying qualities, funding, comes and goes. So that's something that I like about the PMP, though, is because we're kind of outside of that, right? We're our own volunteer-based organization. And so we're not tied to these larger sort of like policy decisions. And then the other thing too is, yeah, talking about this whole thing with COVID, which is, shutting down, in-person classrooms and things like that. The great thing about the PMP being based on writing letters is that it's sort of impervious to things like COVID, because it's not in person. I mean, there is no substitute for live in-person classroom education. Unfortunately, there's just as wonderful as the PMP is, like, you also need that in-person contact, but at least there is still this through has been the PMP through the pandemic.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about the education or that particular aspect of it from an inmate's perspective, so you're in an institution, you don't have access to the same things that other people have access to. You don't have a laptop. You don't have access to a lot of educational resources, and there's not a lot of hope for you to get those things. And then you have an organization like this, like the PMP, that comes along and they offer like direct mentorship. So that's actually filling quite a few needs that are really important. And to an inmate or to a prisoner, our participants, is that one, they now are connected to a community member. Because remember, prisons, the purpose of a prison is to isolate you from the community, from society. Well, when we reach back in as a community and we then participate or have an exchange with somebody who's incarcerated, we're now including them in that small way back to the community. We're now saying, hey, you're not completely isolated. Like, this isn't the end all be all substitute for a community. However, it is a piece of it that is really important. It's that bridge. And then when you attach that to education, and now there's interaction that's happening that's meaningful, now we have this recipe for a quality of life improvement that by and large isn't available when something like COVID hits or when funding gets cut.
Right. And so shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk, return to the topic of where you both are now. So I guess Ruth first. So you're now on the other side of the PMP.
Yeah. I'm an employee of the PMP, or a volunteer, I should say. So I am now working with the PMP full time. This is what I love to do, and I am on the administrative side of things, and it's wonderful. And I sort of speak about what the PMP does, and then I help sort of navigate our administrative tasks, which are many. And there's somebody that needed to do this full time, so I've taken on that task happily. It's like one of my favorite things to do in the world, and I couldn't be more excited that when I stepped out of incarceration and I stepped into this new opportunity. Because for me, prison was like this bad thing, only in that I was separated from the community, because it was a really good thing for me. And that for me, I got to be reborn while I was there. I got to reinvent myself and become the person that I really wanted to be. And stepping out into the PMP and really the community as a whole has been a blessing for me. I don't know another word to use. It's been this amazing blessing for me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that's exactly what we should want to happen, right? I mean, the goal of prison, I mean, in my mind, is not just to punish people, but like, right, there's something wrong. If you've done something wrong, there's something wrong, right? Well, how do you make it better, right? How do you make yourself better? How do you make the community better? And you're turning around and you're like, okay, well, I'm making that change on the other side. And Marshall, you're now you're in college. You finished your first semester of college.
Yeah. So where I'm at in that, a little nutshell is that I did just finish my first class, and it was dance. And I was like, hey, after I'm like, hey, look, I want to have a little bit of fun. I always want to learn how to dance. And like, what better way is to like join a college class for dance? And I got a 4.0. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Woo! Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
so, and then in the beginning, campus was closed except for like a few classes. And then I had signed up for the math that I'm trying to finish my AA. And so it was math and English online. Well, I was not prepared whatsoever for the online tech. And I'm telling you, what a challenge. And even today, like it's so difficult for me to relearn new things and trying to catch up to society and the tech. That's my latest struggle. But so what had happened was it was such a struggle just to like navigate, trying to understand everything. Like I know that I can do the content, but trying to navigate their system was absolutely.
Sorry, Marshall, you cut out for a second there. I can't. I didn't catch the end of that. Sorry, Ruth, did you hear that on your end?
Can you hear me now?
I did not.
Okay, you're back. Yeah. You're back. Can hear you now. Yeah.
So where I'm at today is that I was, figuring out I was getting signed up for math and English, and now COVID's back, and now the classes went back to remote learning, which I refuse to do the online classes. I wanted to do in-person learning in the first place and to have that experience. And so this is going to give me some time while campus is closed to like really try to adapt to the college program of how things work on Canvas, which I think I figured Canvas out, but there's so much information that goes in with like the syllabus and how all the pieces work. Right. And I actually feel like I need a course in tech of just how to do the smallest things up to the biggest thing. And like I said, I just got so overwhelmed to where now my mental health is at a low and my learning is at a low. And like, what am I doing? Like this doesn't work. It can't sustain itself. And I enjoy my peace and my serenity, and it was no longer a thing. And like just opening up my laptop, for instance, caused stress. And I need to learn when I'm calm and I'm in a good place. And that's when I just realized I'm going to step back until things get a little better for the in-person learning, and get some help. And meanwhile, I have a steady job and I'm trying to get better housing. And I'm still in this like amazing sense of like, I've spoke at the University of Washington a few times, and apparently I'll be going back at the end of the month to talk about punishment with a law professor that Ruth and I both had met through the University of Washington book club that they brought in. And then I've spoke to some kids at a wrestling team and got paid for that. That was my first paid speaking job.
Hey, congratulations.
Yeah. I spoke for an hour to kids from ages from 8 to 18 and shared my story. And it was very impactful for the both of us and very inspiring and motivating. And the support and the encouragement that I get from the community that I'm surrounded by out here. And people just love hearing about my just daily habits. That obviously I'm on a chicken farm today. Life is completely beautiful, and I'm still just like, I'm open to learn, and I'm ready.
Excellent. Fantastic.
We can always count on Marshall for just bringing in the light when it's Marshall just brings that light wherever he goes. He's amazing.
Thanks, Ruth.
Yeah. We love you.
Back at you.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we're getting close to the end of the hour here. So I don't know, maybe any sort of final thoughts or things you wanted to talk about today in relation to the PMP and your own experiences.
Yeah,
I have something to finish up. Go ahead, Marshall.
I definitely want to just reiterate too, the community getting involved with the prison somehow, some way, even if it, of course, to support the PNP, like reaching into a prison community to support a prisoner, even in the smallest way, just something. I mean, just anything with, even if it's print offs of a math book, or some math games, or anything to do with math. Like, at my level of learning, like I had to start from the very beginning, like times tables. So like, I just knew with the support from my mentor in the PNP and with Christopher Havens working with me 2 days a week, that I finally started to have a little bit of confidence, like I can do this. And with that, I realized that just that receiving that letter once or twice a month from my mentor brought so much encouragement to my life, and it makes such a difference. So I'm speaking to everybody in the world that is watching this, that you guys are seriously are making a difference in my life. And I know that just reaching in to help someone else, it literally changes people's lives.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'll second that for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and then
that's what I was saying earlier at the the beginning of the podcast, but that's part of the idea of the prison math project. I mean, yeah, on the surface, we want to teach people math. I love talking about math, but really, it's I think the real underlying motivation is what you said. It's just that little, the effect, and it's clear, from the conversations I've had from the two of you and Christopher and other people who have been involved in the PMP. It's clear, just that little push, right? That little rock falling that starts the avalanche.
Yeah.
That's what we're going for.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So this reminds me, and I know that we're getting short on time, so I'll be very fast, but there was this thing that I read while I was incarcerated called The Allegory of the Cave. And it's a part of a larger book by Plato's The Republic. And I'll just like synopsize it because I think it's fitting for like what we're doing here. And that's there's this cave that Plato wrote about, and obviously it's fictitious, but he wrote about this cave where inside there's a wall behind these slaves that are chained to the wall, and they were there their entire lives. And behind that wall, where they could never see, was a great flame. And people would walk in between the great flame and the wall, and they would cast a shadow on the wall in front of the slaves. So the slaves began to see these shadow puppets in front of them, and they would hear the sounds, and they would associate that as this otherworldly, as this other thing that was not them. They didn't understand. It was just shadows on the wall. So one of the slaves ends up getting out. They get out, and they get out from the cave, and they see that there's this great big world out there. And they're left with this choice as to whether or not they go back into the cave to try to tell the other slaves that actually those are just shadows on the wall. There's a big fire behind you. It's not a god, it's not a deity, it's not this thing that's not you. It's this thing is a part of your life, and it's not as you think it is. And they're left with this choice because they know when they go and try to tell these other slaves who have never known anything, they know that they're going to get ridiculed. In that environment, they're going to be the ones that are looked at as the crazy ones. And so they're left with a choice. Do they go back in and try to help them, or do they stay out and just enjoy life the way that they are? And I think that what we're sort of doing is that we're left with these people that know that there's something else out there. Those that are incarcerated, they know that there's something else out there, and they just don't know how to reach that. And they have this idea about what's happening. And here we are, we're left with the choice too, as a society. Looking back in, we know that there's these people that could really use help. And sometimes that help is just that extra little nudge that Marshall was talking about, just that extra little bit of hand holding. And look at Marshall, look at all of us. We're out here, we're impacting our communities in these really positive ways. And it's because somebody reached back in and they said, hey, actually, we have some information for you that may actually change your life. And I really enjoy that piece of the PMP and then other people that are involved with it. So I just wanted to share that.
And also to piggyback off Ruth, is that it's not just the math. I did forget this giant point, is that with my mentor, he had shared his life goals with me and his challenges, and also was curious about my life goals and things I've struggled with and who I was and who I want to be. And so it just didn't become about math, but collectively, it was this beautiful relationship with a complete stranger that I was able to trust and have some bit of vulnerability with him, and to build into this, wow, like someone really is curious about my life and where I'm going, and he wants to inspire me to do the best that I can. And like that was
Yeah.
And then math was just a caveat, or math was like just an extra almost, you know. I was learning math, but also learning about life itself.
Oh yeah. Awesome. Well said.
Fantastic. Well, what a wonderful idea to leave off on. And may the three of us crawl into that cave and pull some other people out.
Yeah. Woo. Marshall, Kristaps, we love you.
Love
Okay,
you
yeah,
guys.
thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
All right, you
Yeah.
too. Thank you so much.